Hello there, everyone. How you doing today? I hope you're all well. Today we're going into r/entitled people, where we have plenty of wonderful stories, like an entitled boyfriend of a housemate who thinks he can live with them rent-free, and then slanders OP when they try to get him to leave. If you enjoy, like, subscribe, do all that wonderful stuff, and without further ado, let's get started, shall we? For our first story, we've got
People should enjoy my baby snowman year-round, damn it.
now that my little corner of the world has been experiencing seemingly endless weeks of snow, slush, and cold. I had to remind myself, at least I'm not at the paper. Yes, when I was fresh out of college, about 20 years ago, I worked for the small daily newspaper. It was literally right on the edge of people beginning to turn to the internet for news, so we still had to run around getting a lot of stories. But it was also a family-owned publication, so they prided themselves on including the small-town vibe, if you will. We often included a standalone photo of some kids building a snowman or frolicking in a splash pad, most times, honestly, as filler. We had 2 full-time photographers who split the week between them. And also, we reporters often took the paper's digital camera on the road with us, as these kinds of photos are usually unexpected, just passing by things kind of things. That's what they're supposed to be at any rate. Many parents very quickly deduced that our paper wasn't going to be fair to their little Brittany or Jason. This was all right on the edge of Facebook and people getting their own platforms for bragging to the world about their shining stars that they produced from their very own loins. So we were unfortunately that platform. We would get regular phone calls from people begging us to come to their home and take a photo of Brittany and Jason at their adorable lemonade stand or hugging a homeless person as proof they were doing volunteer service. As we were truly operating on a limited staff, I would generally tell people that it all depended on what else I had to do that day, that I might check it out if I happened to be anywhere nearby, but please don't expect anything, as it's not likely. As you might imagine, some people took this better than others. Had it been today, I would have encouraged them to simply take their own picture and email it to us. But the way some publications do now, but alas, that really wasn't a thing yet. A few were technologically advanced enough to do so. However, I will never, ever forget the mom who called me, describing at length the breathtaking and wonderful jack-o'-lantern her kids had carved and which she'd photographed with her digital. What our readers truly needed more than anything else in their lives was for us to publish this photo. Ma'am, I pointed out as gently as I could. It's now the middle of November. It's a bit late for us to be talking about Halloween. And she was greatly offended at this.
It's not my fault. I was busy. I didn't have time to send you this photo. So what? It's still a great photo. It's a great jack-o'-lantern no matter what month it is.
I did my best to explain the concept of newspapers needing to be timely, which of course blew right past her. I asked her how she'd feel about a Halloween picture in the news in November, if it were something that had nothing to do with her own family, and there was silence at the other end, of course. Finally, after a few rounds, we got to the heart of the issue. She had already promised Brittany she would get her pumpkin photo in the paper.
Now what am I supposed to tell her?
The woman demanded, as though this were actually a valid consideration on the end of the phone currently being held by an overworked employee earning $2 over minimum wage. You could tell her maybe next year, I said. It'll give her something to look forward to. Won't that be nice? And now I have to go, but thank you for calling. Have a great day, all right? And now here I am, a woman well into my 40s, wondering if Brittany has kids of her own, whose random stuff she's pushing at people who have zero desire to see it. That's the end of our first story. Now on to the next one, shall we? Entitled boyfriend of housemate thinks he can live in my student home for free and then slander me online when we all ask him to leave. This is an old one, but I thought it might be a good read. When I was a uni student, one of my housemates was dating a guy from her hometown. She invited him to come visit for a couple of weeks, which we were fine with. But that couple of weeks' visit very quickly turned into him moving and mooching off of us. They both informed us that he would find a job and pay his fair share. But this, in fact, did not happen. He made no effort to find a job. He didn't pay any rent, paid nothing towards the bills. He did nothing towards cleaning the house. He just spent all his time taking up our communal area, playing video games and watching TV. In their bedroom, they just proceeded to have extremely loud, naughty words that I can't say on YouTube, that everybody could hear because the walls were too thin. In the end, we had enough. It was about 3 months into us squatting that us remaining 3 housemates had a chat about whether it was acceptable. Obviously, we were all in agreement that it wasn't, and set up a meeting with the girlfriend and the interloper. It was decided I would be the one to breach the subject and take the lead on the conversation, informing them both that he had overstayed his welcome and that it was time he went home. He argued that he'd been struggling to find a job, and that's why he was unable to pay his way. But we all pointed out that he hadn't even made any attempts to find a job, just spending all his time on the sofa playing video games. Eventually, his girlfriend agreed that he'd been taking the piss a little bit, and asked if he wouldn't mind going home. He did, and I thought that was the end of it. Oh, it wasn't. On the day of his moving out, he proceeded to post something on Facebook, thanking my other 2 housemates for being welcoming hosts, while deliberately dragging my ass in the posts, claiming I was a poor host and was throwing him out for no reason. Of course I wasn't going to stand for that, calling him out and making it very clear it was a collective house decision, and he had been living with us rent-free for several months, which was not acceptable, and pointing out we would have been happy for him to stay if he was paying any contribution to the house, but in fact he wasn't, and that ended in him making a groveling apology under my comment, saying he was sorry and he didn't intend for it to come out like that, on and on. I didn't accept it because he knew what he was doing, and just said he should take the post down because he's made an idiot of himself. He did, but I still made sure my side of the story was out there by making my own post. Anyways, he went home. We got our house back and he didn't visit again. Anytime my housemates and he wanted to see each other, she would go back home, and after a few weeks, I'd found out that he also set up mobile contracts with his address listed as ours, and was not paying them. I gave all the bills to my housemate to give to them. They eventually broke up, but honestly, she wasted too much time on and energy on that complete waste of space. He was just an entitled user who didn't expect to come up against 3 girls who weren't gonna take his crap. Well, good going, OP. Good job on not taking his shit. Now on to our last story of the day. I kicked my soon-to-be ex-friend out of my house. As the title says, last week I kicked what I thought was a good friend out of my house because I can no longer handle her antics. I just want to write it here just to de-stress and deal with the grief of losing a friend. Kendall and I met in university in 2016. We studied different majors, but were from the same department, so we share many classes together, and bonded over our passion for gaming and memes. Upon graduation, Kendall moved back to her hometown due to COVID and found a job there. We kept in touch online through Instagram. About 3 years later, Kendall told me she found a better paying job in the city I'm in, so she's planning to move out from her parents' place. When I asked her about her plans on her accommodation, she replied, "That's the thing. I was going to ask if you have an extra bedroom I could move into." For context, I have inherited an apartment from my late grandfather, which is a nice 3 bedroom, 2 bath near the city center last January, and I currently live alone there since it's closer to my workplace, and it has all the convenience of public transport. After some thinking, I thought that there's no harm in living with Kendall, since I considered us close friends. We discussed the terms and, of course, the rent. A week later, Kendall moved into my apartment. It was great at first. My home felt more lively than usual, and the thought of going home to a close friend warmed my heart and gave me a sense of security. Things were okay for a while, and then shit goes downhill real fast. Kendall started complaining about many things at home, about her work, her savings, and how she feels homesick. At first, I was very accommodating, thinking maybe she just needs time to get used to the city life. I offered as much help as I can, even to the point of if she's low on money, I don't mind voiding a month's rent if it meant I could help her to achieve financial stability. I taught her how I save money, how I live off with my then low salary with several commitments like my car, my dog, and a student loan. I grew up where my parents expected me to be independent, so I told her things I'd do when I was low on cash, how to get freelance jobs, and so on. But she always seemed to have excuses for every suggestion I have. Finding a freelance job's too hard, or how she couldn't let go of her premium junk food, or that she isn't willing to cook or meal prep, and I eventually decided to leave it as it is. After about 2 months of living together, I realized Kendall started treating me as some kind of competition. She would constantly ask me things like how much money I make in a month, how many job hoppings did that take, anything that she thinks she's better than me at. She'll definitely pop that question. She boasts about how she's loyal to her cruddy paying company, and how I would never be able to move up the corporate ladder, as she called me an industry frog. She once snooped in my savings balance and asked how I had so much saved up with commitments and so on. Mind you, she didn't have a lot of commitments since her parents paid off her student loans and fully paid off a brand new car for her, and maybe I should stop collecting rent from her. I got mad and told her if she isn't happy living with me, maybe she should move out. Cue the crocodile tears, as she said it was a joke, I didn't have to take her seriously. She begged for forgiveness and promised to never snoop in my personal items and details again. I let it go once, but she kept bringing things up like, "Well, you have the cash and a credit card." Every time I told her I'd rather stay home, because I no longer have a budget to go out and have fun. Comments like these became more frequent when I got a new job 6 months ago. On top of that, she doesn't clean up after herself. She tried to flirt with my boyfriend, and at times parked in my parking space when our initial agreement was that she has to find her own parking if she's moving in with her own car, because my apartment only has parking lot, one per unit. The straw that broke the camel's back was when I caught her kicking my dog in his abdomen when I got home from work. I yelled at her and rushed to check on my dog. Luckily, he was fine, but I still rushed him to the vet for security reasons. I got home and she sneered that it was just a dog, and as a friend, I shouldn't treat her like that. I asked why she'd kicked my dog, and she didn't answer me. She shrugged and tried to escape into her room. At this point, it was already about a year since Kendall moved in with me. I lost my cool and told her off, bringing up her problems, and how I tried to be nice and accommodating. I then told her I'm giving her a week to move out, and that from then on, I'd rather we kept our relationship casual, or we don't ever talk at all. Kendall cried and begged me not to kick her out, but soon it turned to her screaming back at me, calling me a bad friend because apparently, in her words, I didn't tell her off on how badly she was behaving. Like, what the frick? You're an adult. There was a lot of back and forth, which I don't remember what I said, but I eventually called her an entitled brat. She cried again, saying it was uncalled for, and stormed into her room. The next day, I was bombarded with texts from other uni friends, some calling me selfish and others sympathizing with me. Apparently, Kendall posted our argument on Facebook and Instagram, painting me to be the bad guy. I was upset at first, but I decided that after Kendall moved out, we would no longer be friends, as well as those who took her side of the story and condemned me. Last week, Kendall left, and I've changed the locks on my apartment. I curled up in bed and cried myself out, probably from the sadness of losing a friend, or maybe I'm finally letting out all the frustrations. I'm definitely still grieving about the loss of a friend, as I've had many good times with Kendall. For now, I want to focus on myself, and hopefully I eventually get over this. Thank you for watching today's video. If you enjoyed, remember to like, subscribe, hit the notification bell, and leave a comment down below with your thoughts on the stories. Now, and now, I'll see you all next time. Hasta la pasta.